Hey guys, thanks for joining me today on another episode of Cartels Unearthed. Today we're going to be talking about Avianca Flight 203 and a lot of conspiracy that's been surrounding this topic for quite some time. We all know the basic story of the situation of what happened. The plane left Bogota on November 27th, 1989, bound for Cali. It exploded 13 minutes later over the city, on the outskirts of the city, over a mountain, um, killing all passengers and 3 people on the ground, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Later on, the investigation concluded that there was a bomb on board placed by Pablo Escobar and the Medellin cartel in an effort to kill somebody on the plane. However, I'm going to share information with you guys that is quite interesting. 6 years later, there was a massive investigation in the FBI. The FBI led the investigation of the Avianca explosion, and a lot of things came to light in 1995 that flawed the initial investigation of the explosion. Um, this particular investigation also brought to light a lot of flaws in other investigations, including the World Trade Center bombing in 1993 and the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. So it wasn't just the Avianca explosion that suffered issues in its original investigation because of what came to light. So I'm going to get right into it with the details. And again, everything I'm sharing with you guys is simply facts that exist out there. They are on several FBI files, reports, Department of Justice reports, NTSB reports. They're out there. And this was something that was researched a while ago in Colombia by a journalist and has been very controversial since. And I went ahead and pulled out these files and did research to see if it really had some kind of merit to it. And in my opinion, it does. Okay, so in 1995, Dr. Fred Whitehurst, who's a chief chemist for the FBI at the time, came out and said that the FBI crime labs were mishandling evidence from a lot of cases. They were not following proper protocols in the way they handled evidence. If we watch any type of crime shows like CSI, NCIS, Law and Order, we all know that in the show they make a very good point of showing that evidence cannot be tampered with. You have to be very careful with it because it could scrutinize the evidence on that particular item. You know, you cannot touch it. It has to be used with protective gloves. If you want to get the fingerprints or DNA or whatever it is, it has to be handled with care and not be exposed and contaminated with anything else. Well, what Dr. Fred Whitehurst said was that was not happening at the FBI. The FBI, with the crime labs, were not handling evidence properly. So, pretty much, the final report from the Department of Justice in 1997 confirmed what he said and said that a lot of these cases, including the Avianca case, had scientifically flawed testimonies. They pretty much admitted that the evidence that they had for the case was scientifically flawed. That's a huge, huge, huge issue. You're pretty much saying everything that you guys got from this accident that said it was a bomb was wrong. The lead agent for the investigation of the flight of Avianca was Richard Hahn. Now, during the investigation of the evidence tampering that came to light in 1995, he was questioned a lot about the investigation he made about the accident. It turns out that Mr. Hahn was not qualified to handle an investigation himself. He had no experience in metals or explosives. He did not have any experience in investigating crimes of this nature. While he was an FBI agent, he was not specifically trained to handle these kind of cases. The only experience he had in dealing with any type of case similar to this was a year earlier when he was part of the investigative team for the Pan Am 103 bombing over Lockerbie, Scotland. even in that particular case, his role was limited to collecting personal items from victims. So he had nothing to do with finalizing or leading a case of this magnitude. In his report, he stated that he never knew what the metal of a plane should look like if a bomb exploded in it. So here's this guy whose report, his final report in 1989, states that a bomb went off the inside Avianca Flight 203. Yet 7 years later, in the report by the Department of Justice, he admits he doesn't even know what the metal of a plane should look like if a bomb went off in it. So your report is flawed. And the Department of Justice and the FBI admitted that there were scientifically flawed testimonies within this particular case, among others. Pretty much all the evidence from the initial investigation was useless. A lot of things contribute to this particular case. There's a lot of information, and if you guys want more information, I will do a more detailed video about it, because it's a lot of information, and I don't want to bore you guys with all the little details. I want to give you guys the main details. He also stated in his report, in his final report when he was being investigated in 1996-97, he said, and I quote, "I am not qualified to discuss the process of what could have happened. I made a mistake. I don't even know if the scientific community knows what happened because of my flawed report." He admits his flawed report. He admits he doesn't know what a plane should look like or what the metal of the plane should look like if a bomb had gone off. He has no experience. The FBI admits he has no experience. The FBI admits that his information was scientifically flawed, and the evidence that he submitted and that was submitted for this case in 1989 was useless. Why was it useless? Here's another piece of evidence that comes up in the report that says it was useless, that it doesn't make sense. So, it's claimed that a bomb went off on the plane. If this is a bomb and it goes off, it has residue, and it's supposed to leave residue around you. It's kind of like, let's think of it like cocaine almost. It's similar. If when people snort cocaine and they use a bill, there'll be residue on that bill. It'll be there. It'll be left there. Even though you didn't do it and it's been years or weeks or months, it still got residue from that cocaine. Same thing with an explosion. If an explosion goes off, residue is going to be left over. If something blew up here, one of these things blew up here, you would find residue of this, whatever this is, the explosive, on the walls, on the lights, on the cameras, on me, on my clothes, on this drink, on everything around here, and depending on how big the explosion is, even further out. When they examine the debris, according to the report, not me, again, this is nothing from me, this is what is on these reports. When they examined all the debris from the plane, they only found residue on one item on that plane debris that had explosive residue. And that item was on the underbelly of the plane. So the bomb was supposed to have gone off on seat 15E, and yet they found the explosive residue on one item on the underbelly of the plane. Not on the seats, not on the walls, not on the bodies, not on the luggage, not on the coffee or the cans or anything like that. They found it on the underbelly of the plane, on one part. It makes no sense. It also continues to contradict itself in many ways, because several years later, we all know that El Arete, who was one of the sicarios from the cartel, he took credit for the bombing of the plane. And he stated that he put 5 kilograms of dynamite in the device that was carried on board the flight. Yet that one piece of the plane that had the explosive residue on, they found Semtex, which is a completely different type of explosive. So Arete is claiming that he put this bomb on board, and he put 5 kilograms of dynamite. But they don't find residue of dynamite. They find residue of Semtex. Secondly, if I'm not mistaken, Popeye later on states that they put C4 on the plane. But yet again, they don't find C4 in the reports. In the reports, it states that they found Semtex. Semtex is I'll tell you right now, Semtex is a plastic odorless explosive. So we have two Sicarios claiming that they put either C4 or dynamite, but yet the FBI is finding Semtex, but yet they're only finding it on one piece of the plane on the underbelly. So the FBI is saying one thing that doesn't match with Arete. The FBI is saying something else that doesn't match with Popeye. Arete is saying something that doesn't match with the FBI. Popeye is saying something that doesn't match with Arete. Arete is saying something that doesn't match with Popeye. None of these stories are matching, and yet the whole investigation that happened in 1989 is pretty much useless because the guy that investigated it had no experience and had no education in understanding what the metal of a plane should look like if it exploded with a bomb, and doesn't even understand the scientific analogies or theories behind what he's trying to say. And he claims it in the report, and the FBI says it in the report as well. So here we have this major explosion, this major attack, and the person investigating doesn't know anything about how to investigate this, and none of the information that's coming together is correlating with one another. On top of that, the initial report by Richard Hahn, the guy who said he was not qualified to do this or talk about this, his report was copied by the Colombian government in 1989, and that was the report the Colombian government went with. So nothing, and so that means pretty much that means that the Colombians copied the report, but then the report, this is the initial report that the FBI guy made, and this is the report now that the Colombians copied here onto here. But then it comes out 6 years later that this report is false. It's wrong, it's inaccurate, it's not right, but then this report the Colombians still have. So that means this report is wrong too. But they never changed their report. This is a huge thing. And there's so much information, and there's so much proof in the details of what they're talking about. It's surprising. I find it amazing that an FBI agent was able to go and lead an investigation of something so major and have absolutely no education, no knowledge of what to do. That is crazy. That is like putting a mechanic to try and save a life of someone in a surgeon's room, in a surgeon's place. Let's put a mechanic in an operating room and save this person's life, and vice versa. Let's take a surgeon and put it in a mechanic shop and fix a car. It's not going to work out. One is not experienced with the other. And this is what happened in this particular case. They took this gentleman who, I'm sure he meant no harm. They sent him to do his job, but the FBI was not aware that he was not qualified to do this particular job. So his report in 1989 was inconclusive. It was flawed. Like just the way it's said in the FBI report, it says it's scientifically flawed because there's no science behind this report. You have someone who's looking at metal of a plane and he doesn't know, does this metal, is this metal supposed to look like this because it exploded from a gas explosion, from a bomb explosion, or just because it crashed? Those are the type of things that those investigators are supposed to know, and he didn't know anything about this. He clearly states it. I'll read it again because I just find it crazy that someone was able to investigate an explosion, a possible terrorist attack, and they have the nerve to then 6 years later say, I am not qualified to discuss the process of what could have happened. I made a mistake. I don't even know if the scientific community knows what happened because of my flawed report. I never knew what the metal of a plane should look like if a bomb had exploded. That's it. That's pretty much saying you didn't know what you were doing. That means that we can't even trust that first report. That was why this second investigation was opened. But that second investigation was never sent to the Colombians for them to make their own investigation. That is part one of this story. I would love to hear what you guys think about this. It's another part of this story in what is a lot of people in the aviation community from my research believe that there's a major cover-up here. I would love to hear what you guys think. Again, this is not my opinions. Mostly these. I mean, I told you guys a few places where I do believe it's crazy. That's my opinion. I do think it is crazy that this particular agent was allowed to investigate this, not having any experience. And him clearly admitting that he had no experience, and then the FBI admitting in the final report by the Department of Justice that the entire case was scientifically flawed. That's insane. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Again, you guys are welcome to make your own judgments. I'm just sharing the information that is out there. Comment below, subscribe, share. Let me know what you guys think about this massive report. This is a real report, which I will be happy to send the links to anybody if they want. They're out there, so you guys can read for yourself. I think one report alone from the FBI is about 26 pages, and then the Department of Justice report is like 80 pages. So you're welcome to read through it if you guys like. But just with those 3 quotes by the leading agent of the investigation, it tells you enough to know that, well, then you were in charge of knowing what happened and telling the world what happened, and you didn't even know what happened. So how can we trust your report? How can we trust what you said? Stay tuned for part 2. It's going to bring a couple of more theories from an investigation with the FBI and Boeing, the company that built the plane 18 years earlier. So stay tuned for part 2, and let me know what you guys think about this particular theory, though. I really would love to hear what you guys think. I'll catch you guys on the next video. Thank you for watching.